It's the third cook on the new Big Joe, and we're going right to brisket. Let's get into it. What's up, barbecue fans? Welcome back to Patio. My name's Jake. You're watching Roman Cook. Today on the channel, we're breaking out the Big Joe. We're doing our first brisket. It is the third cook on the Big Joe, and I want to break it in properly. So we're going to do a brisket. Now, it's been a minute, quite some time actually, since I've done a brisket on a Kamado style cooker. Now, I've done a bunch on my workhorse. I've done a bunch on my pellet grill. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the things that I've been modifying and tweaking on those two smokers and put it to use in this guy. Let me bring you in here, we'll get some lump and we'll get this guy started up. As you can see, I've already gone ahead and I've cleaned out the basket. We've got a little bit of lump there. So as you can see, I stole Smokin' Dad Barbecue's double indirect method with the water pan underneath. I just closed this for a sec because it is quite smoky while it gets up to temperature. But truth be told, I've been watching him use that method for about the last year, and I decided I gotta try it out to see if it's all it's cracked up to be. So James, hopefully you steered me in the right direction. You will notice that I've added a fair amount of wood down there with a couple pieces on top. Now for a long time I always put wood on top, then I started putting it on the bottom. But the one thing that I've learned in the last year and a half or so is that a little bit of dirty smoke in the beginning will not hurt you whatsoever. Really learned that on my offset, and more recently I've been playing a lot with it on the Yoder. And for a long cook, as long as you don't overdo it, go dirty smoke for the first few hours, maybe 4 hours on a brisket. It's not gonna hurt it. You're gonna run clean smoke at the end, but you're gonna be able to get some smoke in there when the meat's really cold. And we're gonna give it a go, see if it's over smoked. I don't think it'll be, just because of all the time I spent on my offset. Even Mad Scientist Barbecue put a video saying he was wrong. He did some tests between running super clean smoke and dirty smoke, and he found that the dirty smoke had more flavor in the end of the cook. So one thing we struggle with on a Kamado is bark. So we're gonna try and see if we can get some good bark on that. Now I've got a little bit of time while this cleans up. So I'm gonna start at 225, nice and low. It's early, I got time, and I want to try and put a bunch of smoke in there, but more importantly, I really want to work on that bark. Now, I've been doing fat cap up on my briskets in a Kamado for some time. I just like the presentation better, and I think if you don't go too hot and too fast, you can still preserve the bottom, no problem. And I've had some success with it, but it's been a while since I've done one on the Kamado, so I'm throwing a couple different things that are floating around in my head on it, and we'll see how we make out. Let's talk about our brisket trim. So this is a choice brisket from Costco. Picked it up yesterday. It is 15 pounds. And what I did is I got it out of the package and took off that decal fat, that big, thick piece of fat across the front. Now this one didn't have a huge one, but they all have it. Took that off. We worked on the bottom. We worked on all that silver skin to try and get that off. And then I took off one of the edges, and now I can see my fat cap, how thick it is. We flip it over and we just start working on that fat cap. Now the goal here is to have a nice even 1/4 inch of fat across the top. Take your time, put your brisket in the freezer for like 20 minutes before you cut it, sharpen your knife, and it will be a lot easier to work with, and you'll be able to trim that up and make it look good. Now we want a fully rounded brisket, so we're aerodynamic at the end of it. Not as much of an issue on a Kamado style cooker, but on an offset if you don't round that off. So we're gonna go the traditional offset style trim. Next, we took our pepper cannon and we ground up some fresh cracked pepper. I went with 4 tablespoons, and then I got some Diamond Crystal kosher salt, and I went with 2 tablespoons. So we're running a 2-to-1 ratio here. Put a heavy coating on the bottom, Make sure you get those sides, and then we did a heavy coating on the fat cap. That's going to be our presentation side, so a little bit of extra pepper there won't hurt at all. Hopefully that'll aid with our bark a little bit. So I carved that up this morning. It's been sitting in the fridge ever since. It's nice and cold. I like to put my briskets on ice cold. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this just probably 10-15 minutes to get up to temperature. I'm going to go at 225, and then we'll bring it on and we'll get smoking. So it's been about 20 minutes. Our smoke is now under control. Yes, you can see it, but we're going to be okay with that. Dome temp, we're at 210. So now remember, when we're at the grate, we're going to be 25 to 50 degrees hotter. I'll show you my brisket before we put this on here, but here we are, right here. I did do a fairly aggressive trim on this guy. I've got a grinder. I can grind it up and use it for other things. I prefer to do an aggressive trim on my brisket, so when I cut into it, I get a great bite every time. Let's put this on. Put this guy on like so. Well, there's a nice thing about a Big Joe right there. I got all kinds of room. Got a nice healthy coating of pepper on here, at least a 2-to-1. I might have went a little heavier than that, but you can go a 3-to-1 and not really hurt it. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to let this roll. I'll bring it back probably in about 4 hours. I'm really not going to touch it too much for the first couple. I will have a look at it and maybe spray it with some water around hour 3. It'll all depend on how we're looking, but I'll bring you back when we get to that step. So as you can see, it's been more than a few hours. We're actually almost 5.5 hours. Let me bring you up to speed. So for the first 3 hours, I ran dome temp around 210, kept it there, kept the smoke rolling, and then I cranked it up to 275. Let's have a look at how we're looking. 176 right now, 181, 179. So we're moving along nicely. So as you can see, overall, we're looking not too bad. I've actually only sprayed twice now. I'm gonna give this another spray. Just using water today. I'm gonna leave this there's a big wedge of fat here that now that I'm seeing, I should have went in a little deeper. I'm gonna leave that alone. I don't want to cool that down. But just around the edges here, very bottom here. I don't want to cool down the fat. I want to let this fat render. Feels pretty good. Even up here where it's a little dark, still feels nice. A little thick in here. We've got a little bit of time to go for this. But one of the things about having a brisket in a Kamado, you definitely cook a lot quicker. I'll bring you back a little bit. So it's been another hour and a half. Let's look at our temps here. You can see we're reading about 193 here in the center and 199 up front. So it's feeling pretty tender, but it's not quite done yet, and I haven't rendered up my fat. So the one thing that I realized is that all the briskets I've done for the last 6 months have had a long overnight rest, and that wasn't my plan for this one, but I think to be able to compare it apples to apples, I need to do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw down a good chunk of tallow here. So overall, a pretty good looking brisket. It's a little crunchy on that end. Still pliable, but dark. Not a bad bark for a Kamado. The one thing I'm just not liking is it didn't really break down as much of this fat as I would have liked, but it feels good. A decent bark. And what we're gonna do is we're going to set this like so. Get rid of this so you can see what we're looking at. I'm gonna loosely wrap this to let it cool down for a little bit, like this. Like so, right? What I'm going to do is I'm actually gonna open this up a little bit inside, and I'm gonna let it sit for about an hour just to stop the cooking process. We're a little higher than I would like. I would like to be closer to 190 all the way through. But I'm gonna stop the cooking process a little bit, and then I'm gonna put it in the oven, and I'll bring you back tomorrow. Good morning, brisket lovers. It has been 14 hours since I saw you last. What I did is I left this guy open for a little while until we got down to about 158, 160, and then I wrapped it up tight. I put it in my oven. that's sitting between 150 and 160, and we let it rest. Somehow I managed to puncture it. As you can see, a little bit of tallow on the bottom. No big deal, we'll dump that right on top. Before we can cut into this guy, let's talk about the contest. So every video I do a contest, super easy to enter. All you gotta do is be subscribed to the channel, you gotta like the video, and comment with the hashtags associated with that video. If you win, I'll give you a $25 gift card to appbbq.com, and if you happen to be a Patreon member, it starts at $5. I'll double it and make it $50. We've had 4 of those so far, so those people have made their investments worthwhile, and then some. Someone's won 3 times as a Patreon member, as a matter of fact. Anyhow, before we can do that, let's look at last week's video, and then I'll give you the hashtags for this week's video. This is the Connected Joe Smoke Wings, and our hashtags were hashtag Connected Joe, hashtag Smoke Wings. See how many comments we had. 26 unique comments using those hashtags. And let's see who the winner is. Gemzilla Smoke BBQ. Love doing smoke wings on my Big Joe. Do not have, oh, I can't see the whole comment. It's not showing me the whole comment for some reason, but you, sir, have won yourself a $25 gift card to appbbq.com. What I will do is I will comment on your comment, get you to email me, we'll confirm it's you, and we'll get you that gift card. Let's get back to the video. There's another winner. The hashtags for this week's video are gonna be hashtag Texas Brisket, hashtag Kamado Cooking, and let's have a look and see how we did. Not too bad. The fat rendered out a little bit more. Ooh, we got lots of tallow. I'm gonna dump this here. Get rid of this. And then what I'm gonna do, well, put that down here, and we'll transfer this guy onto our cutting board. Give you a little tallow bath. We have a new puppy. Well, he's a year old. I guess he's still a puppy, but he's just learning that Daddy likes brisket and barbecue, and he loves it too. We're not gonna put that down there because you'll be into it. That is a nice little tallow bath there. Looking pretty good, although I can see right there I missed a spot of trimming. That fat's a little bit too thick, but that looks pretty good. Not too bad. A lot closer to what I'm used to looking at because I've done so many overnight rests. You get to see that bark really gets a lot darker. So overall, for a first brisket in a long time on a Kamado style cooker, first time on the Big Joe Series 3, I think we're doing okay. Let's have a little bit of a cut here. Whoa. Cutting like butter. And I did let it rest till about 140. There's that big old fat pocket that I wanted to get rid of. I didn't cut enough of it out. It's not quite rendered as much as I would like, but if we cover that up, it's not too bad for a first attempt. Super juicy, and there's a little bit of it. You can see that I got some of that yellow fat here, but I'm a little thick there, almost ½ an inch instead of a smaller one. So the trim wasn't the best, but overall, it's got a nice little smoke ring. Got a little bit of work to do with my rendering, but let's see how it tastes. We'll try some burnt end over here. Half here. Definitely tastes like brisket. That's got some great flavor, actually. I battled a little bit with my smoke, but overall, I'm pretty happy with that. Got some work to do on the fat rendering, but the flavor is actually quite good. Give you some slices in here. Nice and juicy. I don't want a huge piece. Well, quite happy with that. Let's try some of the flat here. Well, get a little deeper in here. Got our dangle, looks pretty good. Tears apart nicely. And the bottom is not hard at all. Flat's nice and juicy. I'm gonna call it a success. Really happy with that. As I mentioned, this one fat pocket didn't render out as much as I would like. it was a really thick, I mean, look at how deep that is. It's almost 3 inches in, so it would have been hard to do that for a rookie, but I will work on that for next time. But overall, other than that, I'm really happy with it. The bottom is not crunchy whatsoever. You know, sometimes in a Kamado style cooker, you have a tendency to crisp up that bottom. We're not having that problem. You would see it shred if that was happening. And it didn't. You know, obviously we rested in tallow overnight, so that would have softened it up a little bit. If you're not doing a long rest, I highly recommend it. I switched to doing it. That overnight rest really helps. I'm looking at some other options. I know a lot of you told me that your oven only goes down to 170. I have a video coming out where I did a 170 rest and it works out not too bad, but I am looking at some other options for you guys. If that interests you and you're not subscribed yet, please do so below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you soon.